Welcome to episode 37 of Tales to be Told in the Dark. The Doctor will see you now. I awoke this morning. This is, what day are we on? Thursday, I think. And it's like, oh dear. I feel like I've been run over by an 18-wheeler. Every joint in the fingers, the wrists, elbows, shoulders, you name it, the whole body is just feeling like it's aching, and it's like, oh well, it's changing the temperature, so I've got like cold-like symptoms, the achiness. Earlier on, it's like, here we go, we've got the sore throat. And a little bit of a sort of start of a runny nose, as it were, but I shall just sweat this out tonight. Is it a bad thing? No. As Lana A. Labonte says, if you suppress the pain, you suppress the pleasure. We're in a realm of duality. All that is happening is basically being reflected in the astrology. And as I said on, I think, a couple of previous videos, if you have that feeling that time is speeding up, that is a reflection because you are spiritually growing at such a rapid rate. So this is not unexpected in myself, that the body is changing and it's redefining itself. It's very much of the moment, of the time. After all, we are a presence, and we're in the present moment. So we will feel all these things inside ourselves, but it's how we interpret them. That saying about always being the last to know. Now, on an individual level, that is, the mind is always the last to know. The physical body is actually sending signals. It's giving little warning signs. The body is telling on the mind, basically. So if you are feeling, shall we say, ill, it's not, as we've been told, oh, you're ill, you better take this to ease your suffering. There is no real suffering. It's like, I can put up with this. I had a whole year of this, 2022, each solstice and equinox, I had this same sort of feeling, and now I have that, or today I've had that, how do we describe it? It's like a numb, dull sensation at the back of the skull. It's the sort of chick breaking out the egg shell, pushing out, the mystery of Golgotha, basically. And it's not the first time I've had this, and this sensation seems to come back, or the body is giving this sensation, which can now be interpreted for what it really is, not the sort of negative material sense of, oh, I feel ill. It's not feeling ill at all. It's progression. It's your own internal reset that's going on. That is really is the great reset, what goes on inside you. So if there is anybody else out there who is having a bit of a difficult time of it, and this is sparked really by two things. One is putting out to the universe and going to the future of how I wish to see myself, how becoming the man I wish to be in the role I wish to play. And I've had an email asking for mentorship, and I thought, yeah, from what's been described, I can see I went through this exactly the same thing, so I'm quite happy to help. And I thought, well, let's extend this out, because I'm sure there's many of you out there who are going through a tough time one way or another. So what I'm offering here is, excuse me, what I'm offering here is a sort of one-on-one basis of let's get to the root of why you're feeling the way you're feeling, why you feel like you're aching or you're suffering in any particular way. And we can get to the root of it and we can turn it round for you. So in exchange, as much as anything else, we've got Buddy here. He needs feeding. So if I said, say, a nominal charge of just €3, you may just need just one sort of consultation, as it were. And you're going to be getting a lot of information for €3 out of that. So it's a win-win. I get the pleasure and the satisfaction of helping others out of this as well, which is all helps you feel good about yourself when you're helping others like this. There's also the aspects, I spoke about this a long time ago on a video that, with regard to the role of the student and the teacher. Now, a teacher is only as good as their experience as a teacher and their experience as a teacher and their interaction with the students. If the students are not coming back with questions or are not enriched, then the teaching really isn't up to much. I can readily think of the education system with regard to this in the way that subjects are almost deliberately made to be as uninteresting and boring as possible. And you end up sort of going through the motions, and obviously if you're just going through the motions, your heart is not in it, so it's a half-hearted effort. And I feel a lot of this with education in particular, it's half-hearted because deep down inside ourselves we know that it's not right. Oh, excuse me. There's that inner knowing that something is off with it. So the offer is there. In the description of this video and all the main videos, there is the contact email. You can also find me on Facebook Messenger under Dr. Juan Forfar. So there's two avenues if you wish to make direct contact, and let's see how we can help you. Now, I'm not saying I've got ready answers all lined up, far from it. So to start with, let's see where you are in your life, in your spiritual growth, and then we can take it from there. Total change of subject now, but it all relates in anyway. I was listening to an absolutely beautiful lecture by Manly P. Hall on Albert Pike. Now, leaving aside anything about what we're told about Albert Pike, I want to get to the essence. I'll put the link in the description for this particular video. Now, the thing to really listen to is about 24 minutes into 27 minutes in. So to reiterate on this, it's to do with symbolism. That the symbols go as a way of expression that words cannot convey. Now, the interesting thing with a symbol and a realization that comes from seeing a symbol is that what you see in that symbol will be reflected on your level of spiritual growth. And what also becomes apparent from this is a realization in oneself that you feel sort of inadequate, inferior, and that limitation is what stops you seeing more in these symbols. And as you grow spiritually, when you look at these symbols again, it then reveals another level to it. And it's the way Manly P. Hall describes it is, it's like an unfolding flower that doesn't stop unfolding. And I thought, what a beautiful way of describing it. Now, what are we talking about here when we're saying symbols? I'm going to offer some symbols here. You probably know of 26 of them. I'm referring, of course, to the alphabet, the alphabet, which it is a bet because it is a gamble. Now, there's a gam or a game bull. That's what a gamble is. It consists of 3 symbols, the G, the A, and the M. Now, what happens when you flip those round? You've got mag. Now, 2 examples of mag I can give you straight away is magazine. The word magazine. Now, what do you readily think of with that word? Do you think of the glossy little sort of booklets on a weekly or monthly basis you see in shops that you can buy, mostly with a lot of superficial nonsense in it? Well, there's one type of magazine. The other type of magazine, obviously, is the cartridge that goes into a gun. But which is the more damaging of those two? Which is firing the more destructive shots? Could it be the script as you turn the pages and read these articles? And a lot of it is, I can think of the sort of like gutter level of it, as it were, with the magazines that will feature Hollywood stars and what's going on in their lives and all this sort of nonsense. And then you get the Dear Deirdre problem pages and that type of thing. Awful things. Actually, they're good. They're good for starting fires, the cooking and things. So they do actually have a use, and then they create ash, which can go back to Earth. So it's no bad thing from that sense. Now the MAG. Now, if you put the I, the all-seeing eye, at the front of this, and the energy that encapsulates the MAG, you've got image. Now, when you see the image come into the manifest in this reality, there is the magic, which is basically the magnetism I see. The MAG is short for magnetism. It's short for Magdalene. It's where we're at is what we attract, to quote Lana again. We are basically magnetic beings. So with the spiritual growth, you'll encounter more things. And remember, we are in a realm of contrasts and duality. So whilst you spiritually grow, the external will be doing all it can as an extension, really, of the id, the ego mind, the lower self. Will try and do everything to sort of pull you out of that, because you're stepping into the unknown. New experiences, and this is a new challenge. But you can draw on previous experiences to help you through this. And of course, with what I'm offering here, you can compare with others, and I've been through quite a few experiences which I can draw on to use, and this is really all I can talk about authentically is testimony. And it's like, now it all makes sense why Abdullah appeared. This is the guy that taught both Neville Goddard and Dr. Joseph Murphy, which I mentioned on a previous video recently. What he sort of, I'm going to say what he said, but it's not talking like in the physical sense. It's at a, should we say, a telepathic level. It's at a soul level, basically. And for Abdullah to sort of come through and appear was hugely significant to me. That's like, yeah. And he's basically he was just saying to me, as it were, that you already know. And it was just really, it's a beautiful confirmation. So it's a marker of, yeah, we've come out of summer, we're going to a period of less light, but when there's less light, you see the light clearer. So the timing of all of this makes perfect sense to me anyway. And I would love to help as many as you as possible, because I benefit and I grow from this as much as I'm helping you to grow as well. I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody else. I'm not saying that I've got anything new to offer. But I work on the basis, let's use a material analogy here. People will say, oh, I wouldn't be seen dead in that, referring to clothing, or there's no way I'm buying that property. For anybody to buy into something, they have to see themselves either in those clothing or in that house, in those two examples. If they can't do that, they're not going to buy it. And there's another saying often, I just don't buy it. You see how these sayings that we take for granted actually have a much deeper meaning. And you'll find this with everything. There is a superficial layer, a veneer. But then when you go below that, or deeper into it, as it were, it reveals so much more. So just like the symbols, and now you could say that everything actually is a symbol. It doesn't actually have to be something that is a letter or something that is drawn, a particular pattern or whatever. But they are the more readily accepted things that are called symbols, obviously. But coming back to the MAG again, now the M, if you think about it, is the reverse, the mirror of the W, which I mentioned in those 5 questions, the what, why, where, when, and why. And by taking off that W, moving through that sort of veil, the double V, or the W, think about that. Why is it called double U when it's actually 2 V's joined? Could it be that it is actually referring to the twin caduceus inside yourself, the double U, when you are separated within yourself, rather than as a unified being? So if we flip that over to its opposite polarity of the magic, now we've got the M, and I could say, for example, Masons, the Masonic. You've got the MA and then Sonic. Now I'm not going to even make a judgment of whether Masons are good or bad. Certainly looking at some of the things to do with it, it makes a lot of sense, the enlightenment of mankind. So again, it comes back to not being judgmental on things. So I'm not going to, I'm not listening to that lecture because it's about Albert Pike, because I feel there was something to learn in that, and something beneficial, something that would quantify and open up a new perception or a new way of saying something that you already know inside yourself, but unable to sort of express it at that particular time. There's another very good one on Sir Francis Bacon, and I'd recommend listening to that one as well. They're outstanding lectures. Now, one of the first things that people would come back with, Manly P. Hall, he was a Mason, and Rudolf Steiner, he was a Mason. So what? Let's put ourselves in the opposite role, as it were. Put yourself in the role of the controllers of this reality, as most people would see things. Let's go for a wartime situation. Now, you've got a certain amount of people that have this ability to remote sense. So if you're controllers of the system, are you going to let them become like a wild card? Because if they could remote sense, they could remote sense the controllers. So you'd obviously want to create a think tank and keep them close to hand so you could keep an eye on them as much as use their, shall we say, spiritual gifts to serve your agenda. A train of thought has just gone, as it always does. Boom. It'll come back in a moment. It's basically, you don't chuck the baby out with the bathwater, because we are in a realm of duality. So don't judge things as, oh, that's good, that's bad, because if you think about it in terms of religions, the different denominations, notice the word denomination also refers to money as well, as in different denominations of banknote. But in each religion, there will be sufficient truth in it, which there has to be a lure. So you can't dismiss any of these things as all totally bad or all totally good. And it comes back to not being judgmental about anything, but just being the observer. And in doing so, what opens up is a whole new level that is not at the superficial level as you start going deeper and deeper into these things. But the thing to watch with some of these things, if they are external things in particular, they end up becoming rabbit holes. And it's a question I've asked several times before. If anybody who's gone down any rabbit hole, no matter what the subject is, and has actually got to the source, for example, the significance of the number 33, or mud floods or something like that, has anybody actually got to the bottom of any of it? And even if you did, how does it actually benefit you? There's a saying about, if you wish to change the world, you have to change yourself first. The universe is you in verse. When you get yourself reset, it really does have an impact on the external around you. And this increases the more you practice and practice and practice, and keep going inside yourself rather than looking externally. But at the same time also observing what's being presented to you, whether it's seeing a particular bird or animal. If it catches your eye, there's a reason for it. Look up the spiritual meaning. Just put in a Google search, spiritual meaning of, say, blackbird. And then just look at the opening headlines of maybe the first 5, 6 links that would come up from that search. And just go with the explanation that feels right to you, because they can vary greatly. But the secret is in the feeling. This is something Neville Goddard talks about. It's not just imagination. This is where the law of attraction falls down to some degree, because if it's law of attraction, you're trying to attract something towards you, which means you are therefore lacking it. You don't already have it. Far better to substitute that with the law of assumption and assume you've already got it, regardless of what the external reality is saying, which is usually the opposite. It's just trying to convince you that you haven't got it. But it's overwriting, it's doing a system rewrite, and then it will just come. The time scale of it coming is a thing unto itself. It comes back to being in the present moment. So, and this thing about no time. Time, after all, is just a concept and a measurement, and we use time in as much as anything else as we look back and compare to something in the past to the present, and then make a sort of informed decision, hopefully from the previous experiences. But it comes back to the present. it's the same with astrology. I wouldn't use astrology as a way of predicting. I listen to astrology channels and readings more as a confirmation of how I feel inside myself, and that has been reiterated on two I've seen. Adrian Elise was one. I can't remember the name of the other channel off the top of my head, but it confirms what I've been feeling about we are going into a winter wonderland. But of course, that is going to depend on how you are inside yourself. So again, the offer is there if you wish to step into the unknown without fear and basically repent. As Neville Goddard expresses it or explains it. Repentance is a radical change of mindset. So instead of being fearful of the unknown future, it's now stepping into the role of, all right, I'm looking forward to the next step because I feel that it's going to be good. And this is exactly how I am feeling about this winter. And it's the first time for a long time that it may even be the first time that I've actually felt I'm really looking forward to winter, because as far as the external reality with the seasons, it's like it's less daylight, it's colder, and generally I don't I'm not a winter person. I much prefer summer, but in some ways it's better to have spring and autumn because it's in balance. It's not too much of one thing or the other. But I do appreciate all the seasons, and particularly this week, I must say I have been feeling bliss and gratitude, and even this sort of achy physical feeling of almost like cold or flu symptoms. It's all right, bring it on. It's not generally said of that with colds and flus, but I just appreciate what it is the body is just saying rest. So I took it easier today, not done as much as I would do, but it's like those jobs will still be there tomorrow. They're not urgent that they can't wait another day. And it's no point getting stressed over it, and there's no point sort of pushing the physical body when it's saying it needs to rest, to recover. So we go with that internal communication. That's something I've learned from past experience of trying to push through, feeling the pressure and the stress of I've got to get this done by this particular time. And obviously the external world, especially in the working world, wants you in at work regardless of how ill you may feel. But that's another story in itself. But so I think that's just basically covered all I wish to say. And the offer is there. The door is always open if I can help anybody, and just maybe €3 nominal charge. It's going to greatly benefit myself. It'll help pay towards food for Buddy, and it'll help increase the range of crops and things that can be grown here, so we're creating abundance here. So it's a part of a long-term plan of what I call nurture, the bringing art and nature together, and a new way of doing things where there are no mistakes, just experiences in which we learn and grow from. So if that feels something you'd like to try, I'm available, and I look forward to hearing from you. Love to you all.